The Lord called to Moses and addressed him from the tent of meeting. Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering from the livestock, either from the herd or the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he must offer a male without defect. He shall present it at the entrance to the tent of meeting, so that it may be acceptable to the Lord. He is to lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. He shall slaughter the young bull before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and sprinkle it around on the altar, at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He shall skin the burnt offering and cut it into its pieces. Aaron's sons, the priests, shall place fire on the altar, and arrange wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall arrange the pieces, including the head and the fat, on the wood that is on the fire on the altar. He shall wash the internal organs and the legs with water, and the priest shall burn all of it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, a soothing aroma to the Lord. But if his offering is a burnt offering from the flock, either from the sheep or the goats, he shall offer a male without defect. He shall slaughter it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle its blood around on the altar. He shall cut it into its pieces, and the priest shall arrange them, including the head and the fat, on the wood that is on the fire on the altar. He shall wash the internal organs and the legs with water, and the priest shall bring all of it and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, a soothing aroma to the Lord. But if his offering to the Lord is a burnt offering of birds, he shall bring his offering from the doves or young pigeons. The priest shall take it to the altar, remove its head, and burn it on the altar. Its blood shall be drained out on the side of the altar. He shall remove its crop with its feathers, and throw it beside the altar, on the east side, to the place of the ashes. He shall tear it open by its wings, without dividing it completely, and the priest shall burn it on the wood that is on the fire on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a food offering, a soothing aroma to the Lord. When anyone presents a grain offering to the Lord, their offering shall be saffronous, the plough of the finest flour. They are to pour olive oil on it, and put frankincense on it. They shall bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest shall take a handful of the flour and oil with all the frankincense, and burn this as a memorial portion on the altar, a food offering, a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. It is a most holy part of the offerings, presented to the Lord by fire. If you bring a grain offering baked in an oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of the finest flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers spread with oil. If your grain offering is prepared on a griddle, it shall be made of the finest flour mixed with oil, and without leaven. Divide it into pieces and pour oil on it. This constitutes a grain offering. If your grain offering is cooked in a pan, it shall be made of the finest flour with oil. Bring the grain offering, made of these things, to the Lord. Present it to the priest, who shall bring it to the altar. The priest shall take out the memorial portion from the grain offering, and burn it on the altar as a food offering, a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. It is a most holy part of the offerings to the Lord, by fire. Every grain offering you bring to the Lord must be made without leaven, for you shall not burn any leaven or honey, as an offering by fire to the Lord. You may bring them to the Lord as an offering of postfruits, but they shall not be offered on the altar as a soothing aroma. Season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offerings. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. If you present a grain offering, or postfruits, to the Lord, offer crushed heads of new grain roasted in the fire. Add oil and incense to it. This is a grain offering. The priest shall burn the memorial portion of the crushed grain and the oil, together with all the incense, as an offering by fire to the Lord. If your offering is a sacrifice of peace offerings, and it is from the herd, whether male or female, you shall present it without defect before the Lord. You shall lay your hand on the head of your offering and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood around the altar. From the peace offering you shall present an offering by fire to the Lord. the fat that covers the internal organs and all the fat that is on them, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which you shall remove with the kidneys. Then Aaron's sons shall burn it on the altar on top of the burnt offering that is on the wood on the fire. It is an offering by fire, a soothing aroma to the Lord. If your offering for a peace offering to the Lord is from the flock, you shall offer a male or female, without defect. If you offer a lamb, you shall present it before the Lord, and lay your hand on its head, and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons shall sprinkle its blood around the altar. From the peace offering you shall bring an offering by fire to the Lord, its fat, the entire fat tail removed close to the backbone, the fat covering the internal organs, and all the fat on them, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which you shall remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn it on the altar as nourishment, an offering by fire to the Lord. If your offering is a goat, you shall present it before the Lord, and lay your hand on its head, and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons shall sprinkle its blood around the altar. From it you shall present your offering as an offering, by fire to the Lord, the fat that covers the internal organs, and all the fat on them, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which you shall remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as nourishment, an offering by fire, a pleasing aroma. All the fat is the rozu. This is a lasting ordinance for all your generations wherever you live. You shall not eat any fat or any blood. The Lord addressed Moses with these words, "Speak to the Israelites and say, if anyone sins unintentionally in any of the things the Lord has commanded not to be done, and commits any of them, if the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt upon the people, he must present to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He shall bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord, lay his hand on its head, and slaughter it there before the Lord. The anointed priest is to take some of the priest's blood and carry it into the tent of meeting. He is to dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord, in front of the veil of the sanctuary. The priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of fragrant incense before the Lord in the tent of meeting, and the rest of the priest's blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He shall remove all the fat from the bull of the sin offering, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys, just as it is removed from the ox of the sacrifice of a peace offerings. Then the priest shall burn them on the altar of burnt offering. But the hide of the bull and all its flesh, along with its head, legs, entrails, and refuse, that is, all the rest of the bull, he must take to a clean place outside the camp where the ashes are poured out, and burn it there on a wood fire. Where the ashes are poured out, it shall be burned. If the whole Israelite community sins unintentionally, and the matter escapes the notice of the assembly, and they do any of the things the Lord has commanded not to be done, and become guilty, when the sin they have committed to becomes known, the assembly must bring a young bull as a sin offering, and present it before the tent of meeting. The elders of the community shall lay their hands on the priest's head before the Lord, and the bull shall be slaughtered before the Lord. Then the anointed priest shall bring some of the priest's blood to the tent of meeting. He shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord, in front of the veil. He shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar before the Lord, in the tent of meeting, and the rest of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering, at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He shall remove all its fat and burn it on the altar, and do with this bull just as he did with the bull of the sin offering. In this way the priest will make atonement for them, and they will be forgiven. Then he shall bring the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. This is the sin offering for the assembly. When a leader sins unintentionally and does any of the things the Lord his God has commanded not to be done, and becomes guilty, if his sin which he has committed becomes known, he shall bring as his offering a male goat, without defect. He shall lay his hand on the goat's head, and slaughter it at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered before the Lord. It is a sin offering. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and the rest of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar. He shall burn all the fat on the altar, as he burned the fat of the peace offering. In this way the priest will make atonement for him regarding his sin, and he will be forgiven. If any member of the community sins unintentionally by doing any of the things the Lord has commanded not to be done, and becomes guilty, if the sin which he has committed is made known to him, he shall bring as his offering a female goat without defect for his sin which he has committed. He shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place of the burnt offering. The priest shall take some of its blood with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and the rest of its blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar. He shall remove all its fat, just as the fat was removed from the peace offerings, and the priest shall burn it on the altar, as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. In this way the priest will make atonement for him, and he will be forgiven. If he brings a lamb as his offering for a sin offering, he shall bring a female without defect. He shall lay his hand on its head, and slaughter it for a sin offering at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. Then the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and the rest of its blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar. He shall remove all its fat, just as the fat of the lamb is removed from the peace offerings, and the priest shall burn it on the altar, on the offerings by fire to the Lord. In this way the priest will make atonement for him, for the sin he has committed, and he will be forgiven. If an individual sins by failing to speak up when they hear a public call to testify about something they have witnessed or know, they will be held accountable. Or, if a person becomes aware of their guilt after unknowingly touching anything that is ceremonially unclean, be it the carcass of an unclean animal, whether wild or domestic, or any unclean creature that moves along the ground, and they realize their impurity, or if they touch human uncleanness, whatever form it may take, and it is hidden from them, but later they become aware of it, they will be guilty. Or if someone makes a rash oath to do anything, whether good or bad, in any matter people might carelessly swear about, and it is hidden from them, but later they become aware of it and realize their guilt. When they become aware of their guilt in any of these matters, they must confess how they have sinned. As a penalty for the sin they have committed, they must bring to the Lord a female from the flock, a lamb or a goat, as a sin offering, and the priest will make atonement on their behalf for their sin. If they cannot afford a lamb, they are to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the Lord as a penalty for their sin, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. They are to present them to the priest, who shall first offer the one for the sin offering. He is to pinch off its head at the front of its neck, but not sever it completely, and sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering against the side of the altar. The rest of the blood is to be drained out at the base of the altar. It is a sin offering. The second bird he shall prepare as a burnt offering according to the ordinance. Thus the priest will make atonement on their behalf for the sin they have committed, and they will be forgiven. If, however, their means are insufficient for 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, they are to bring as an offering for their sin 1/10 of an ephah of the finest flour. They must not put olive oil or incense on it, for it is a sin offering. They are to bring it to the priest, who shall take a handful of it as a memorial portion, and burn it on the altar, with the offerings made by fire to the Lord. It is a sin offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them concerning any of these sins they have committed, and they will be forgiven. The remainder of the offering will belong to the priest, as in the case of the grain offering. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, If anyone acts unfaithfully and sins unintentionally in regard to any of the Lord's holy things, they must bring to the Lord as a guilt offering a ram, without defect from the flock, valued in silver shekels, according to the sanctuary shekel. It is a guilt offering. They must make restitution for what they have failed to do in regard to the holy things, 1/5 of its value, and giving it to the priest. The priest will make atonement for them with the ram as a guilt offering, and they will be forgiven. If anyone sins and does what is forbidden in any of the Lord's commands, even if they are unaware, they are guilty and will bear the consequences. They are to bring to the priest a ram without defect from the flock, valued according to your assessment, as a guilt offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them for the wrong they have committed unintentionally, and they will be forgiven. It is a guilt offering. They have indeed been guilty before the Lord. The Lord addressed Moses, saying, "When someone sins and acts unfaithfully against the Lord by deceiving a neighbor concerning a deposit or a security entrusted to them, or through theft, or if they have extorted from their neighbor, or if they find lost property and lie about it, or swear falsely about any such sin that people may commit. When they sin in any of these ways and realize their guilt, they must restore what they have taken by theft or extortion, or what was entrusted to them, or the lost property they found, or whatever it was they swore falsely about. They must make restitution in full, adding a fifth of the value to it, and give it to the rightful owner on the day they present their guilt offering. As a penalty, they must bring to the priest their guilt offering to the Lord, a ram without defect from the flock, of the proper value. In this way, the priest shall make atonement for them before the Lord, and they will be forgiven for any of the things they did that made them guilty. The Lord then instructed Moses, saying, "Command Aaron and his sons, saying, These are the regulations for the burnt offering. The burnt offering is to remain on the altar hearth throughout the night until morning, and the fire on the altar must be kept burning. The priest shall put on his linen robe, with linen undergarments next to his body, and shall remove the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire has consumed on the altar, and place them beside the altar. Then he is to take off these garments and put on others, and carry the ashes outside the camp, to a ceremonially clean place. The fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning the priest is to add firewood, arrange the burnt offering on the fire, and burn the fat of the peace offerings on it. The altar fire must remain lit continuously. It should never be extinguished. These are the regulations for the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to present it before the Lord, in front of the altar. The priest shall take a handful of the finest flour of the grain offering, with its oil in all the incense on it, and burn the memorial portion on the altar as a soothing aroma to the Lord. Aaron and his sons shall eat the rest of it. It shall be eaten as unleavened bread in a holy place. They are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It must be prepared without yeast. I have given it as their share of the food offerings presented to me. Like the sin offering and the guilt offering, it is most holy. Every male among Aaron's descendants may eat it. It is a perpetual share of the food offerings presented to the Lord for all generations. Whoever touches them will become holy. The Lord also instructed Moses, saying, This is the offering Aaron and his sons are to present to the Lord on the day he is anointed, 1/10 of an ephah of the finest flour as a regular grain offering, half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. It must be prepared with oil on a griddle, bring it well mixed, and present the grain offering broken in pieces as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. The son who is to follow him as anointed priest shall prepare it. It is the Lord's perpetual share and is to be entirely burned. Every grain offering of a priest shall be entirely burned. It must not be consumed. The Lord then instructed Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, These are the regulations for the sin offering. The sin offering is to be slaughtered before the Lord, in the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. It is most holy. The priest who offers it for sin shall eat it. It is to be eaten in a holy place, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches any of its flesh will become holy, and if any of its blood is spattered on a garment, you must wash it in a holy place. The clay pot in which it is cooked must be broken, but if it is cooked in a bronze pot, the pot must be scoured and rinsed with water. Every male among the priests may partake of it. It is most holy. But any sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place must not be eaten. It must be burned with fire. These are the guidelines for the guilt offering. It is most sacred. The guilt offering is to be slaughtered in the same place as the burnt offering, and its blood shall be sprinkled around the altar. He shall offer all its fat, the fat tail, and the fat that covers the internal organs, and the 2 kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which he shall remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar, as a fire offering to the Lord. It is a guilt offering. Every male among the priests may eat it. It must be eaten in a holy place. It is most sacred. The same rule applies to both the sin offering and the guilt offering. They belong to the priest who makes atonement with them. The priest who presents a burnt offering for anyone shall have the height of the burnt offering for himself. Every grain offering, baked in an oven or cooked in a pan or on a griddle, is for the priest who offers it. Every grain offering, whether mixed with oil or dry, belongs equally to all the sons of Aaron. These are the guidelines for the sacrifice of peace offerings that one may present to the Lord. If he offers it as a thanksgiving, then, along with the sacrifice of thanksgiving, he shall offer unleavened cakes mixed with oil, unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes of fine flour, well kneaded and mixed with oil. With the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving, he shall present cakes of leavened bread. He is to bring one of each kind, as an offering, a contribution to the Lord. It shall belong to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the peace offerings. The flesh of the sacrifice of his thanksgiving peace offerings must be eaten on the day it is offered. None of it shall be left until the morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering is a vow or a voluntary offering, it shall be eaten on the day he offers his sacrifice, and what is left over may be eaten on the next day. Any flesh of the sacrifice left over until the 3rd day must be burned with fire. If any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings is eaten on the 3rd day, it will not be accepted, nor credited to him. It will be an unclean thing, and whoever eats it shall bear his iniquity. Flesh that touches anything unclean must not be eaten, it shall be burned with fire. As for other flesh, anyone who is clean may eat it. But if anyone eats the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings that belong to the Lord, while he is unclean, that person shall be cut off from his people. Anyone who touches anything unclean, whether human uncleanness, or an unclean animal, or any unclean detestable thing, and eats of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings that belong to the Lord, shall be cut off from his people. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites, saying, You shall not eat any of the fat of an ox, sheep, or goat. The fat of an animal found dead or torn by wild animals may be used for other purposes, but you must not eat it. Anyone who eats the fat of an animal, from which an offering by fire may be presented to the Lord, must be cut off from his people. And wherever you dwell, you must not eat any blood, whether of bird or animal. Anyone who eats any blood shall be cut off from his people. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites, saying, Anyone who offers the sacrifice of his peace offerings to the Lord shall bring part of it as his offering to the Lord. With his own hands he shall bring the offerings made by fire to the Lord. He shall bring the fat with the breast, that the breast may be waved as a wave offering before the Lord. The priest shall burn the fat on the altar, but the breast shall belong to Aaron and his sons. You are to give the right thigh to the priest, as a contribution from the sacrifices of your peace offerings. The son of Aaron who offers the blood and the fat of the peace offerings shall have the right thigh as his portion. For I have taken the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the contribution from the sacrifices of the Israelites, peace offerings, and have given them to Aaron the priest and his sons as their perpetual share from the Israelites. This is the portion of the offerings made by fire to the Lord that were allotted to Aaron and his sons on the day they were presented to serve the Lord as priests. On the day they were anointed, the Lord instructed that the Israelites give this to them as their perpetual share for the generations to come. These, then, are the guidelines for the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, the ordination offering, and the peace offering, which the Lord commanded Moses on Mount Sinai, on the day he instructed the Israelites to bring their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Bring Aaron and his sons, along with their garments, the anointing oil, the bull for the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread, and assembled the entire congregation at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Moses did just as the Lord commanded him, and the congregation gathered at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Moses addressed the congregation, saying, "This is the command of the Lord to be fulfilled." Moses then brought forth Aaron and his sons, and cleansed them with water. He clothed Aaron with a tunic, tied the sash around him, dressed him in the robe, and placed the ephod on him. He also fastened the ephod with a decorative waistband, securing it around him. He placed the breastpiece on him, and put the Urim and Thummim into the breastpiece. He set the turban on Aaron's head, and placed the gold plate, the holy emblem, on the front of the turban, as the Lord commanded Moses. Moses took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and everything within it, consecrating them. He sprinkled some of the oil on the altar 7 times, anointing the altar and all its utensils, as well as the basin with its stand, to consecrate them. He poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head, anointing him to consecrate him. Moses then brought Aaron's sons forward, dressed them in tunics, tied sashes around them, and bound caps on them, as the Lord commanded Moses. He presented the bull for the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head. Moses slaughtered the bull, took some of the blood, and with his finger put it on the horns of the altar to purify it. He poured out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar, consecrating it to make atonement for it. He took all the fat surrounding the internal organs, the long lobe of the liver, and the 2 kidneys with their fat, and burned them on the altar. But the bull, with its hide, flesh, and intestines, he burned outside the camp, as the Lord commanded Moses. He then brought forward the ram for the burnt offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head. Moses slaughtered the ram and sprinkled the blood around the altar. He divided the ram into parts and burned the head, the pieces, and the fat. After washing the internal organs and the legs with water, he burned the whole ram on the altar. It was a burnt offering, a pleasing aroma, an offering by fire to the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. He then presented the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head. Moses slaughtered the ram and took some of its blood, putting it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. He also brought Aaron's sons forward, and put some of the blood on the lobes of their right ears, the thumbs of their right hands, and the big toes of their right feet. Moses then sprinkled the rest of the blood around the altar. He took the fat tail, all the fat around the internal organs, the long lobe of the liver, the 2 kidneys with their fat, and the right thigh. From the basket of unleavened bread before the Lord, he took 1 thick loaf, 1 loaf with olive oil, and 1 thin loaf, placing them on the fat portions and the right thigh. He placed all these in the hands of Aaron and his sons, and waved them before the Lord as a wave offering. Moses then took them from their hands and burned them on the altar, on top of the burnt offering. They were an ordination offering, a pleasing aroma, an offering by fire to the Lord. Moses took the breast and waved it before the Lord as a wave offering. It was his portion of the ordination ram, as the Lord commanded Moses. Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood from the altar, and sprinkled it on Aaron and his garments, and on his sons and their garments. Thus he consecrated Aaron and his garments, and his sons and their garments. Moses then instructed Aaron and his sons, "Boil the meat at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and eat it there with the bread from the basket of ordination offerings, as I was commanded. Aaron and his sons shall eat it. Burn the remainder of the meat and bread. Do not leave the entrance to the tent of meeting for 7 days, until the period of your ordination is completed, for your ordination will last 7 days. What has been done today was directed by the Lord to make atonement for you. You must remain at the entrance to the tent of meeting day and night for 7 days, and perform your duty to the Lord, so that you will not die, for that is what I have been commanded." Thus Aaron and his sons carried out all the instructions that the Lord had given through Moses. On the 8th day, Moses called for Aaron and his sons, as well as the elders of Israel. He instructed Aaron, "Take a calf, a bull, for your sin offering and a ram for your burnt offering, both without defect, and present them before the Lord. Then speak to the Israelites, saying, Take a male goat for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both 1 year old and without defect, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, along with a grain offering mixed with olive oil, for today the Lord will appear to you." They brought what Moses had commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the whole assembly came near and stood before the Lord. Moses explained, "This is the command of the Lord, so that His glory may be revealed to you." Moses said to Aaron, "Come to the altar and offer your sin offering and your burnt offering to make atonement for yourself and the people, then make the offering for the people to make atonement for them, as the Lord has commanded." Aaron approached the altar and slaughtered a calf for the sin offering for himself. His sons presented the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar, pouring out the rest at the base of the altar. He burned the fat, kidneys, and the long lobe of the liver from the sin offering on the altar, as the Lord commanded Moses. He took the flesh and the hide outside the camp and burned it. He then slaughtered the burnt offering, and his sons handed him the blood, which he sprinkled around the altar. They handed him the burnt offering in pieces, including the head, and he burned them on the altar. He washed the internal organs and the legs, and offered them on top of the burnt offering on the altar. Aaron then presented the people's offering. He took the goat for the people's sin offering, slaughtered it and offered it as a sin offering like the first one. He presented a burnt offering and offered it according to the ordinance. He also presented a grain offering, took a handful of it, and burned it on the altar in addition to the morning's burnt offering. He slaughtered the ox and the ram as the peace offerings for the people. His sons handed him the blood, and he sprinkled it around the altar. The fat portions from the ox and the ram, the fat tail, the layer of fat, the kidneys, and the long lobe of the liver. These they placed on the breasts, and Aaron burned the fat on the altar. Aaron waved the breasts and the right thigh as a wave offering before the Lord, as Moses had commanded. Aaron lifted his hands towards the people and blessed them. After making the sin offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offerings, he stepped down. Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting. When they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord, and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar. When all the people saw it, they shouted and fell face down. Nadab and Abihu, sons of Aaron, each took their own censers, placed fire in them, and added incense. They offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. Fire came forth from the presence of the Lord, and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord spoke of, saying, Among those who draw near to me, I will be shown to be holy. In the presence of all the people, I will be honored." So Aaron remained silent. Moses called upon Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Aaron's uncle Uzziel, and instructed them, "Come forward and carry your relatives away from the front of the sanctuary to a place outside the camp." They came forward and carried them, still in their tunics, to an area outside the camp, as Moses had directed. Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, "Do not let your hair become unkempt, nor tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon the whole community. But your kin, the entire house of Israel, may mourn for those the Lord has consumed by fire. Do not leave the entrance of the tent of meeting, or you will die, for the Lord's anointing oil is upon you." So they did according to Moses' instructions. The Lord addressed Aaron, saying, "You and your sons must not drink wine or other fermented drink when you enter the tent of meeting, lest you die. This is a perpetual statute for your generations, to distinguish between the holy and the common, and between the unclean and the clean. And so you may teach the Israelites all the decrees the Lord has given through Moses." Moses spoke to Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, saying, "Take the grain offering left from the Lord's offerings by fire, and eat it as unleavened bread, beside the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in the holy place, for it is your portion and your sons' portion from the offerings made by fire to the Lord, as I have been commanded. The breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the offering you may eat in a clean place, you, your sons, and your daughters with you, for they have been given as your allotted share, and your children's share from the peace offerings of the Israelites. They shall bring the thigh that is lifted up and the breast that is waved, along with the offerings by fire of the fat portions, to present as a wave offering before the Lord. It shall be a perpetual due for you and your sons with you, as the Lord has commanded. Moses diligently sought the goat of the sin offering, and found it had been burned. He was angry with Eleazar and Itamar, Aaron's remaining sons, and said, "Why did you not eat the sin offering in the sanctuary area? It is most holy, and it was given to you to take away the guilt of the congregation by making atonement for them before the Lord. Since its blood was not brought into the sanctuary, you should have eaten it in the sanctuary area, as I commanded." Aaron replied to Moses, "Today they offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord, and such things as these have happened to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been pleasing in the Lord's sight?" When Moses heard this, he was content. The Lord then spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say, among all the animals that live on land, these are the ones you may eat. You may eat any animal that has a split hoof, completely divided, and that chews the cud. However, there are some that only chew the cud or only have a split hoof, but you must not eat them. The camel, although it chews the cud, does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. The hyrax, though it chews the cud, does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit, although it chews the cud, does not have a split hoof. It is unclean for you. And the pig, though it has a split hoof completely divided, does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You are not to consume their meat or handle their carcasses. They are considered unclean for you. Of all the creatures living in the water, you may eat any that have fins and scales. But all creatures in the seas or rivers that do not have fins and scales, among all the swarming things or other living creatures in the water, are detestable to you. And since they are detestable to you, you must not eat their meat, and you must regard their carcasses as detestable. Anything living in the water that does not have fins and scales is to be regarded as detestable by you. These are the birds you are to regard as detestable and not eat, because they are detestable: the eagle, the vulture, and the buzzard, the red kite, any kind of falcon, all varieties of raven, the ostrich, the owl, the seagull, and any kind of hawk, the small owl, the cormorant, and the large owl, the barn owl, the pelican, and the carrion vulture, the stork, any variety of heron, the hoopoe, and the bat. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as detestable by you. However, among the flying insects that walk on all fours, you may eat those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these, you are permitted to eat any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. But all other flying insects that have 4 legs are to be regarded as detestable. You will become unclean by these. Whoever touches their carcasses will be unclean until evening. Whoever picks up one of their carcasses must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Every animal that does not have a split hoof completely divided, or that does not chew the cud, is unclean for you. Whoever touches the carcass of any of them will be unclean. Of all the animals that walk on all fours, those that walk on their paws are unclean for you. Whoever touches their carcasses will be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up their carcasses must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. These animals are unclean for you. Of the animals that move along the ground, these are unclean for you: the mole, the mouse, and any kind of great lizard. So to the gecko, the monitor lizard, the common lizard, the skink, and the chameleon. Of all those that move along the ground, these are unclean for you. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. When one of them dies and falls on something, that article, whatever its use, will be unclean, whether it is made of wood, cloth, hide, or sackcloth. It must be put in water. It will be unclean until evening, and then it will be clean. If one of them falls into a clay pot, everything in it will be unclean, and the pot must be broken. Any food you are permitted to eat that has come into contact with water from any such pot is impure, and any liquid that is drunk from such a pot is impure. Anything that one of their carcasses falls on becomes impure. An oven or cooking pot must be broken up. They are impure, and you are to regard them as impure. A spring, however, or a cistern for collecting water remains pure, but anyone who touches one of these carcasses is impure. If a carcass falls on any seeds that are to be planted, they remain pure. But if water has been put on the seed, and a carcass falls on it, it becomes impure for you. If an animal that you are allowed to eat dies, anyone who touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. Anyone who eats some of its carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up the carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Every creature that moves along the ground is to be regarded as detestable. It is not to be eaten. You are not to eat any creature that moves along the ground, whether it moves on its belly or walks on all fours or on many feet. It is detestable. Do not make yourselves impure by any of these creatures. Do not make yourselves unclean by means of them, or be made unclean by them. I am the Lord your God. Set yourselves apart and be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves along the ground. I am the Lord, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore be holy, because I am holy. These are the laws regarding the animals, the birds, every living thing that moves within the water, and every creature that moves along the ground. You must distinguish between the impure and the pure, between living creatures that may be eaten, and those that may not be eaten. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites. When a woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a male child, she shall be ceremonially unclean for 7 days, as she is during her menstrual period. On the 8th day, the boy's foreskin shall be circumcised. She must then remain in the state of blood purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any sacred thing or enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are fulfilled. If she gives birth to a female child, she will be unclean for 2 weeks, as during her menstrual period. She must then remain in the state of blood purification for 66 days. When the days of her purification for a son or daughter are completed, she shall bring to the priest, at the entrance of the tent of meeting, a year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. The priest shall offer them before the Lord to make atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the flow of her blood. These are the regulations for the woman who gives birth to a male or female child. If she cannot afford a lamb, she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for her, and she will be clean. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, When a person has a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot on the skin of their body, and it becomes a possible infection of leprosy, they must be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons who are priests. The priest shall examine the infected area on the skin, and if the hair in the infection has turned white and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin, it is leprosy. When the priest examines them, he shall declare them unclean. If the bright spot is white on the skin and does not appear to be deeper than the skin, and the hair has not turned white, the priest shall isolate the person for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall examine them, and if the infection has not changed and has not spread on the skin, the priest shall isolate them for another 7 days. The priest shall examine them again on the 7th day, and if the infection has faded and has not spread, the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only a rash. They must wash their clothes and will be clean. But if the rash spreads on the skin after they have shown themselves to the priest for cleansing, they must appear again before the priest. The priest shall examine them, and if the rash has spread, he shall pronounce them unclean. It is leprosy. When a person has an infection of leprosy, they must be brought to the priest. The priest shall examine them, and if there is a white swelling on the skin that has turned the hair white, and there is raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic leprosy on the skin, and the priest shall pronounce them unclean. They do not need to be isolated, for they are already unclean. If the leprosy spreads over the skin and covers the entire body from head to foot, as far as the priest can see, the priest shall examine them, and if the leprosy has covered their whole body, he shall pronounce them clean. Since it has all turned white, they are clean. But whenever raw flesh appears on them, they shall be unclean. When the priest sees the raw flesh, he shall declare them unclean. The raw flesh is unclean, it is leprosy. If the raw flesh changes and becomes white, they must present themselves to the priest. The priest shall examine them, and if the infected area has turned white, the priest shall pronounce them clean. They are clean. When there is a boil on the skin, and it heals, and in the place of the boil there is a white swelling or a reddish-white bright spot, they must present themselves to the priest. The priest shall examine it, and if it appears to be deeper than the skin and the hair has turned white, the priest shall declare them unclean. It is leprosy that is broken out in the boil. But if the priest examines it and there is no white hair and it is not deeper than the skin and is faded, the priest shall isolate them for 7 days. If it spreads on the skin, the priest shall pronounce them unclean. It is an infection. But if the bright spot remains unchanged and has not spread, it is only the scar of the boil, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. When there is a burn on the skin, and the raw flesh of the burn becomes a bright spot, reddish-white or white, the priest shall examine the spot, and if the hair in the bright spot has turned white, and it appears deeper than the skin, it is leprosy that has broken out in the burn. The priest shall declare them unclean. It is an infection of leprosy. But if the priest examines it and there is no white hair and it is not deeper than the skin and is dim, the priest shall isolate them for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall examine them, and if it spreads on the skin, the priest shall declare them unclean. It is an infection of leprosy. But if the bright spot remains unchanged and has not spread on the skin and is dim, it is the swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce them clean. It is only the scar of the burn. If a man or woman has an infection on the head or on the beard, the priest shall examine the infection, and if it appears deeper than the skin, and there is thin yellowish hair, the priest shall declare them unclean. It is a scale, it is leprosy of the head or beard. But if the priest examines the scaly infection, and it does not appear deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair, the priest shall isolate them for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall examine the infection, and if the scale has not spread and no yellowish hair has grown, and it does not appear deeper than the skin, they must shave themselves, except for the affected area, and the priest shall isolate them for another 7 days. On the 7th day the priest shall examine the scale, and if it has not spread and appears no deeper than the skin, the priest shall pronounce them clean. They must wash their clothes and will be clean. But if the scale spreads on the skin after they are pronounced clean, the priest shall examine them, and if the scale has spread, he does not need to look for yellowish hair. They are unclean. If the scale remains unchanged and black hair has grown in it, the scale has healed, and they are clean. The priest shall declare them clean. When a man or woman has bright spots on the skin, white bright spots, the priest shall examine them, and if the bright spots are faint white, it is eczema that has broken out on the skin. They are clean. If a man loses the hair of his head, he is bald but clean. If he loses hair from the front and sides of his scalp, he is bald on the forehead but clean. But if on the bald head or forehead there is a reddish-white infection, it is leprosy breaking out on his bald head or forehead. The priest shall examine him, and if the swelling of the infection is reddish-white on his bald head or forehead, like the appearance of leprosy on the skin, he is a leprous man and is unclean. the priest must declare him unclean because of the infection on his head. A person with such an infection must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face and cry out, "Unclean! Unclean!" They must remain unclean as long as they have the infection. They must live alone outside the camp. When a garment has a mark of leprosy, whether it is a woolen or linen garment, whether in warp or woof, of linen or wool, or in leather or any article made of leather bixi, if the mark is greenish or reddish in the garment or leather, whether in the warp or woof, or in any leather article, it is a leprous mark, and must be shown to the priest. The priest shall examine the mark, and isolate the article for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall examine the mark, and if it has spread in the garment, warp or woof, or leather, it is a leprous malignancy, and is unclean. He must burn the garment, whether warp or woof, in wool or linen, or any leather article where the mark occurs. It is a leprous malignancy. It must be burned in the fire. But if the priest examines it, and the mark has not spread in the garment, warp or woof, or any leather article, then the priest shall order the article to be washed and isolate it for another 7 days. After the article has been washed, the priest shall examine it again, and if the mark has not changed its appearance, even if it has not spread, it is unclean. Burn it, whether the mark is on the back or front. But if the priest examines it, and the mark has faded after washing, he shall tear it out of the garment, leather, warp, or woof. If it reappears in the garment, warp, or woof, or any leather article, it is a spreading mark. The article must be burned. Any garment, warp, or woof, or any leather article from which the mark has disappeared after washing, must be washed again and will be clean. These are the regulations for the mark of leprosy, in a woolen or linen garment, warp or woof, or any leather article, for declaring it clean or unclean. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, "This is the law for the person with a skin disease. On the day of their purification, they shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go outside the camp to inspect them. If the person has been healed of the defiling skin disease, the priest shall command that 2 live clean birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop be brought for the one to be cleansed. The priest shall order that one of the birds be slaughtered in a clay vessel over running water. He shall then take the live bird along with the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop, and dip them into the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. He shall sprinkle the one to be cleansed from the skin disease 7 times and pronounce them clean and release the live bird into the open fields. The person to be cleansed must wash their clothes, shave off all their hair, and bathe in water, and they will be clean. Afterwards, they may enter the camp, but must remain outside their tent for 7 days. On the 7th day, they must shave off all their hair, head, beard, eyebrows, and all other hair. They must wash their clothes and bathe themselves in water, and they will be clean. On the 8th day, they must take 2 male lambs without defect, a year-old ewe lamb without defect, and 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. The priest who pronounces them clean shall present a person to be cleansed and their offerings before the Lord at the entrance of the Lord, at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall take 1 male lamb, and offer it as a guilt offering, along with the log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. He shall slaughter the lamb in the place where the sin offering and burnt offering are slaughtered, in the sanctuary area. The guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. It is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall also take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his left hand. He shall dip his right forefinger into the oil in his palm, and sprinkle some of the oil with his finger, 7 times before the Lord. Some of the remaining oil in his palm, the priest shall put on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot, on top of the blood of the guilt offering. The remaining oil in his palm the priest shall place on the head of the one to be cleansed, making atonement for them before the Lord. Then the priest shall offer the sin offering, and make atonement for the one to be cleansed from their uncleanness. After that, he shall slaughter the burnt offering. The priest shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar. In this way the priest shall make atonement for them, and they will be clean. If, however, they are poor and cannot afford these, they must take one male lamb as a guilt offering to be waved to make atonement for them, together with 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, whichever they can afford, one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. On the 8th day, they must bring them for their cleansing to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting, before the Lord. The priest shall take the lamb for the guilt offering, together with a log of oil, and wave them as a wave offering before the Lord. He shall slaughter the lamb for the guilt offering, and apply some of its blood to the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of the right foot. The priest shall pour some of the oil into the palm of his left hand. With his right forefinger, the priest shall sprinkle some of the oil from his palm 7 times before the Lord. Some of the oil in his palm he shall apply to the same places he put the blood of the guilt offering, on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot. The remaining oil in his palm the priest shall place on the head of the one to be cleansed, to make atonement for them before the Lord. He shall then offer one of the turtle doves, or young pigeons, whichever they can afford. He shall offer what they can afford, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, along with the grain offering. Thus the priest shall make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the one to be cleansed. This is the law for anyone who has a defiling skin disease, and cannot afford the regular offerings for their cleansing. The Lord also addressed Moses and Aaron, saying, "When you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possession, and I allow a spreading mold in a house in that land, for the owner of the house must go and tell a priest, I have noticed something that resembles a defiling mold in my house. The priest shall command that the house be emptied before he goes in to examine the mold, so that nothing in the house will be pronounced unclean. After this, the priest shall go in to inspect the house. He shall examine the mold on the walls, and if it has greenish or reddish depressions that appear deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest shall go out of the house and close it up for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest shall return to re-examine the house. If the mold has spread on the walls, he shall order that the contaminated stones be torn out and thrown into an unclean place outside the town. He must have all the inside walls of the house scraped, and the material that is scraped off taken to an unclean place outside the town. Then they shall take other stones to replace these and take new clay and plaster the house. If the defiling mold appears again in the house after the stones have been removed, and the house scraped and plastered, the priest shall go and examine it, and if the mold has spread in the house, it is a persistent defiling mold. The house is unclean. The house must be torn down, its stones, timbers, and all the plaster, and taken out of the town to an unclean place. Anyone who goes into the house while it is closed up will be unclean until evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in the house must cleanse their garments. But if the priest comes to examine it, and the mold has not spread after the house has been plastered, he shall declare the house clean, because the defiling mold is gone. To purify the house he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. He shall put one of the birds to death over fresh water in a clay pot. Then he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird, dip them into the blood of the dead bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. He shall purify the house using the bird's blood, the fresh water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn. Then he shall release the live bird in the open fields outside the town. In this way he will make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. This is the law for any defiling skin disease, for a sore, or for harmful molds in fabric or in a dwelling, and for any other skin condition, a swelling, a rash, or a shiny spot. To determine when something is clean or unclean. This is the law for defiling skin diseases and defiling molds. The Lord then spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean. This is his uncleanness in his discharge. Whether his body allows its discharge to flow or obstructs it, it is his uncleanness. Any bed on which the man with the discharge lies becomes unclean, and anything he sits on is also unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Whoever sits on anything that the man with the discharge sat on must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches the man with the discharge must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. If the man with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, that person must wash their clothes, and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Every saddle on which the man with the discharge rides shall be unclean. Whoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until evening, and whoever carries those items must wash their clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Anyone whom the man with the discharge touches without having rinsed his hands in water must wash their clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. An earthenware vessel that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article must be rinsed in water. When the man with the discharge is cleansed from his discharge, he must count off 7 days for his cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe his body in running water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day he must take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord to the entrance of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. The priest shall offer them, one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering. In this way, the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord because of his discharge. When a man has an emission of semen, he must bathe his whole body in water and be unclean until evening. Any garment or leather on which there is semen must be washed with water and be unclean until evening. If a man has sexual relations with a woman, and there is an emission of semen, both must bathe in water and be unclean until evening. When a woman has a discharge, if her discharge is blood, she shall be in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on during her menstrual impurity becomes unclean, and anything she sits on is also unclean. Anyone who touches her bed must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Whoever touches anything on which she sits must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, they shall be unclean until evening. If a man has sexual relations with her and her menstrual impurity is on him, he shall be unclean for 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her menstrual impurity, or if she has a discharge beyond her period, she shall be unclean as during her menstrual impurity. Any bed on which she lies during her discharge shall be like her bed at menstruation, and everything on which she sits shall be unclean, like her menstrual impurity. Whoever touches them shall be unclean, and must wash their clothes and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. When she is cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days, and after that she will be clean. On the 8th day she must take 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and bring them to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. In this way, the priest shall make atonement for her before the Lord because of her impure discharge. You must keep the Israelites separate from their uncleanness, so they do not die in their uncleanness by defiling my dwelling place, which is among them. This is the law for a man with a discharge, and for anyone made unclean by an emission of semen, and for a woman in her menstrual impurity, and for anyone with a discharge, male or female, and for a man who has sexual relations with a woman who is unclean. The Lord spoke to Moses following the death of Aaron's 2 sons, who died after approaching the presence of the Lord. The Lord instructed Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he must not enter the holy place behind the veil, before the atonement cover on the ark, at just any time, or he will die, for I appear in the cloud over the atonement cover." Aaron is to enter the holy place with a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall wear the holy linen tunic, with linen undergarments next to his body, and be girded with the linen sash, and he shall wear the linen turban. These are sacred garments, so he must bathe his body in water before putting them on. He shall take from the Israelite community 2 male goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Aaron shall offer the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household. He shall then take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord, at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. Aaron shall offer the goat on which the lot for the Lord falls and sacrifice it for a sin offering. But the goat chosen by lot as a scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement over it, to send it into the wilderness as a scapegoat. Aaron shall bring the bull for his own sin offering, to make atonement for himself and his household, and he shall slaughter the bull for his own sin offering. He shall take a censer full of burning coals from the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground fragrant incense, and bring them inside the veil. He shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, and the cloud of incense will cover the atonement cover above the tablets of the covenant law, so that he will not die. He shall take some of the priest's blood and sprinkle it with his finger on the front of the atonement cover. He shall sprinkle some of it with his finger 7 times before the atonement cover. He shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil, doing with it as he did with the priest's blood, sprinkling it on the atonement cover and in front of it. In this way, he will make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness and rebellion of the Israelites, whatever their sins have been in Nikah. He shall do the same for the tent of a meeting, which is among them, in the midst of their uncleanness. No one is to be in the tent of meeting from the time Aaron enters to make atonement in the holy place until he comes out, having made atonement for himself, his household, and the entire community of Israel. Then he shall go up to the altar before the Lord and make atonement for it. He shall take some of the priest's blood, and some of the goat's blood, and put it on all the horns of the altar. He shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times to cleanse and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the Israelites. When Aaron has finished making atonement for the holy place, the tent of meeting, and the altar, he shall bring forward the live goat. He shall lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. The goat will bear upon itself all their sins to a distant place, and the man shall release it in the wilderness. Then Aaron shall go into the tent of meeting and take off the linen garments he put on before he entered the holy place, and he shall leave them there. He shall bathe his body with water in the holy place and put on his regular garments. Then he shall come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, to make atonement for himself and for the people. He shall burn the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The man who releases the goat as the scapegoat must wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. Afterward, he may come into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the holy place, shall be taken outside the camp. Their hides, flesh, and intestines are to be burned. The man who burns them must wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. Afterward, he may come into the camp. This shall be a lasting ordinance for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day, you must humble yourselves and do no work, whether native-born or a foreigner residing among you. Because on this day atonement will be made for you, to cleanse you. Before the Lord, you will be clean from all your sins. It is a Sabbath of solemn rest, and you must humble yourselves. It is a lasting ordinance. The priest who is anointed and ordained to succeed his father as high priest shall make atonement. he shall put on the sacred linen garments, and make atonement for the holy sanctuary, the tent of meeting, and the altar. He shall also make atonement for the priests and all the members of the community. This shall be a lasting ordinance for you. Atonement is to be made once a year for all the sins of the Israelites. And it was done as the Lord commanded Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron, his sons, and all the Israelites, and say to them, This is what the Lord has commanded. Any member of the house of Israel who sacrifices an ox, a lamb, or a goat in the camp, or outside of it, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to the Lord in front of the tabernacle, shall be guilty of shedding blood. That person has shed blood, and must be cut off from their people. This is Shanoah, for sheks will bring their sacrifices, which they are currently offering in the open fields, to the Lord, at the entrance to the tent of meeting, to the priest, and offer them as fellowship offerings. The priest shall sprinkle the blood on the altar of the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and burn the fat as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. They must no longer offer their sacrifices to the goat demons, with whom they have been unfaithful. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for future generations. Tell them, any Israelite or any foreigner living among them who presents a burnt offering or sacrifice, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to the Lord, must be cut off from their people. I will set my face against any Israelite or any foreigner residing among them who consumes any blood, and I will cut them off from their people. For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for your souls on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. Therefore I say to the Israelites, none of you may consume blood, nor may any foreigner residing among you consume blood. Any Israelite or any foreigner residing among you who hunts any animal or bird that may be eaten must drain out its blood and cover it with earth, because the life of every creature is in its blood. That is why I have said to the Israelites, you must not consume the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is its blood. Anyone who consumes it must be cut off. Anyone, whether native-born or foreigner, who eats anything found dead or torn by wild animals, must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will remain ceremonially unclean until evening. Then they will be clean. But if they do not wash their clothes and bathe themselves, they will bear the responsibility for their guilt. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Address the Israelites and inform them, I am the Lord your God. You must not act as they do in the land of Egypt, where you once lived, nor should you behave as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their customs. You shall observe my judgments and keep my statutes, to live by them. I am the Lord your God. Therefore, keep my statutes and my judgments, for the person who follows them will live by them. I am the Lord. None of you shall approach any close relative to have sexual relations. I am the Lord. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. Do not uncover her nakedness. You shall not help undress your father's wife. It is as if you made your father naked. The nakedness of your sister, whether your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether born at home or elsewhere, you shall not uncover. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, for their nakedness is your own. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, who is your sister, you shall not uncover. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is your father's close relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is your mother's close relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother's wife. She is your aunt. You shall not help undress your daughter-in-law, as she is your son's wife. You shall not help undress your brother's wife, as it would dishonor your brother. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover their nakedness. They are close relatives. It is a wickedness. You shall not take your wife's sister as a rival wife to uncover her nakedness while your wife is living. You shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness during her menstrual impurity. You shall not have sexual relations with your neighbor's wife, to become defiled with her. You shall not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not engage in sexual relations with a male as one does with a female. It is an abomination. You shall not have sexual relations with any animal to become defiled with it, nor shall any woman present herself to an animal to mate with it. It is a perversion. Do not defile yourselves by any of these things, for by all these the nations I am driving out before you have become defiled. The land has become defiled, therefore I have punished it for its sin, and the land has vomited out its inhabitants. But you must keep my statutes and my judgments, and do not commit any of these abominations, neither the native born nor the foreigner residing among you. For all these abominations were committed by the people who lived in the land before you, and the land became defiled, so that the land does not vomit you out when you defile it, as it has vomited out the nations that were before you. For anyone who commits any of these abominations, those persons must be cut off from among their people. Therefore, keep my requirements and do not follow any of the abominable customs that were practiced before you, so that you do not defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord your God. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the whole assembly of the children of Israel, and tell them, You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Each of you shall respect his mother and father, and you shall observe my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Do not turn to idols, or make for yourselves gods of cast metal. I am the Lord your God. When you offer a sacrifice of fellowship offerings to the Lord, you must offer it in such a way that it will be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you offer it, or on the next day. Anything left over until the third day must be burned with fire. If any of it is consumed on the third day, it is considered impure and will not be accepted. Anyone who eats it will bear the consequences of his guilt, for he has profaned what is holy to the Lord. That person shall be cut off from his people. When you gather the harvest of your land, do not harvest to the very edges of your field, or collect the gleanings of your harvest. Do not go over your vineyard again or gather the fallen grapes. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner. I am the Lord your God. You shall not steal, nor lie, nor deceive one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, thereby profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. Do not cheat or rob your neighbor. Do not withhold the wages of a hired worker overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but fear your God. I am the Lord. Do not distort justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not spread harmful rumors among your people. Do not act in a way that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not hate your fellow countrymen in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly so you will not share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or hold a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Keep my decrees. Do not breed the different kinds of animals. Do not plant your field with two kinds of seed. Do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material. If a man has sexual relations with a woman who is a slave and subject to another man, but who has not been redeemed or given her freedom, there must be due punishment. They shall not be put to death, because she was not free. The man must bring a ram to the entrance of the tent of a meeting, for a guilt offering to the Lord. With the ram of the guilt offering, the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord for the sin he has committed, and his sin will be forgiven. When you enter the land and plant any kind of fruit tree, regard its fruit as forbidden. For 3 years it will be forbidden to you. It must not be eaten. In the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Lord. But in the 5th year, you may eat its fruit, so that its yield may increase for you. I am the Lord your God. You shall not eat any meat with the blood still in it. You shall not practice divination or seek omens. Do not trim the hair at the sides of your head, or clip off the edges of your beard. Do not mark your bodies for the dead, or put tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. Do not dishonor your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will turn to prostitution and be filled with wickedness. Observe my Sabbaths and show reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Do not turn to those who claim to communicate with spirits, or seek out those who consult the dead, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. Rise in the presence of the aged, show respect for the elderly, and revere your God. I am the Lord. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat him. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love him as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Do not use dishonest measures when determining length, weight, or quantity. Use accurate scales and honest weights, an honest ephah and an honest hin. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt. Observe all my decrees and all my laws and follow them. I am the Lord. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites. Any Israelite or any foreigner residing in Israel who offers any of his children to Molech must surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him. I will set my face against that man and cut him off from his people, because he has given his children to Molech, defiling my sanctuary and profaning my holy name. If the people of the land turn a blind eye, when that man gives his children to Molech, and fail to put him to death, I will set my face against that man and his family, and cut them off from their people, along with all who follow him in prostituting themselves to Molech. If anyone turns to mediums and spiritists to prostitute themselves with them, I will set my face against that person and cut them off from their people. Dedicate yourselves and be set apart, for I am the Lord your God. Keep my statutes and practice them. I am the Lord who sanctifies you. Anyone who curses their father or mother shall surely be put to death. They have cursed their father or mother, their blood shall be upon their own head. If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. If a man has sexual relations with his father's wife, he has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon their own heads. If a man has sexual relations with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have committed a perversion. Their blood shall be upon their own heads. If a man has sexual relations with another man, as with a woman, both of them have committed a detestable act. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon their own heads. If a man marries a woman and her mother, it is wicked. Both he and they shall be burned with fire, so that no wickedness will be among you. If a man has sexual relations with an animal, he shall surely be put to death, and you shall kill the animal. If a woman approaches an animal to have sexual relations with it, you shall kill both the woman and the animal. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon their own heads. If a man marries his sister, the daughter of either his father or his mother, and they have sexual relations, it is a disgrace. They shall be cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness, and shall bear his guilt. If a man has sexual relations with a woman during her menstrual period, he has exposed the source of her flow, and she has uncovered it. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, or your father's sister, for that would dishonor a close relative. Both of you shall bear your guilt. If a man has sexual relations with his aunt, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin. They shall die childless. If a man marries his brother's wife, it is an act of impurity. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless. Keep all my statutes and laws and follow them, so that the land where I am bringing you to live may not vomit you out. You must not follow the customs of the nations I am going to drive out before you, for they did all these things, and I abhorred them. But I have said to you, you shall inherit their land. I will give it to you as an inheritance, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, who has set you apart from the nations. You must therefore distinguish between clean and unclean animals and between unclean and clean birds. Do not defile yourselves by any animal or bird, or anything that moves along the ground. those that I have set apart as unclean for you. You shall be holy to me, because I, the Lord, am holy, and I have set you apart from the nations to be my own. A man or woman who is a medium or spiritist among you must be put to death. You shall stone them. Their blood shall be upon their own heads. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and declare to them, A priest must not defile himself for any deceased person among his people, except for his closest relatives, such as his mother, father, son, daughter, or brother. And also for his virgin sister, who is dependent on him, as she has no husband. For her, he may defile himself. He must not defile himself for those related by marriage, thus profaning himself. Priests must not make bald spots on their heads, shave off the edges of their beards, or make any cuts on their bodies. They must be holy to their God, and not profane the name of their God, for they present the offerings by fire to the Lord, the food of their God. Thus, they must be holy. They must not marry a woman who is a prostitute or has been profaned, nor shall they marry a woman divorced from her husband, for they are holy to their God. Therefore regard them as holy, because they offer the food of your God. They shall be holy to you, for I, the Lord, who sanctifies you, am holy. If a priestess' daughter defiles herself by becoming a prostitute, she brings disgrace upon her father. She must be burned with fire. The high priest, the one among his brothers upon whose head the anointing oil has been poured and who has been consecrated to wear the garments, must not let his hair become unkempt or tear his clothes. He must not approach any dead body, nor defile himself, even for his father or mother, nor leave the sanctuary of his God, or desecrate it, for the consecration of the anointing oil of his God is upon him. I am the Lord. He must marry a woman in her virginity. He must not marry a widow, a divorced woman, or a woman defiled by prostitution. But he must take a virgin from his own people, so that he does not profane his offspring among his people. I am the Lord, who sanctifies him. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron, saying, None of your descendants throughout their generations who has a defect may approach to offer the food of his God. No man who has any defect may approach. No man who is blind, or lame, or has a disfigured face, or any conspicuous deformity, or anyone with a broken foot or hand, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf, or who has a defect in his eye, or has festering sores, scabs, or crushed testicles. No descendant of Aaron the priest who has any defect is to come near to present the offerings by fire to the Lord. He has a defect. He must not come near to offer the food of his God. He is permitted to partake of the food of his God, including both the most sacred and the holy portions. But because of his defect, he must not approach the veil or come near the altar, lest he profane my sanctuaries. I am the Lord, who sanctifies them. Moses then communicated these instructions to Aaron, his sons, and all the Israelites. The Lord then spoke to Moses and said, Tell Aaron and his sons to handle with care the sacred offerings the Israelites dedicate to me, so that they do not profane my holy name. I am the Lord. Say to them, throughout your generations, if any of your descendants approaches the holy gifts dedicated to the Lord while being ceremonially unclean, that person shall be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. No descendant of Aaron, who has a defiling skin disease or discharge, may eat the sacred offerings until he is clean. He will also be unclean if he touches anything made unclean by a corpse or a man who has a seminal emission, or if he touches any swarming creature that makes him unclean, or any person by whom he is made unclean, whatever his uncleanness may be. The person who touches any such thing shall be unclean until evening, and must not eat any of the sacred offerings unless he has bathed his body in water. When the sun sets, he will be clean, and afterward he may eat of the sacred offerings, for it is his food. He must not eat anything that dies naturally, or is torn by wild animals, becoming unclean by it. I am the Lord. They must carry out their duties to me in such a way that they do not incur guilt and die because of it, for they profane it. I am the Lord who makes them holy. No outsider may eat the sacred offering. a foreigner residing with the priest, or a hired worker, shall not eat it. But if a priest buys a slave with his money, that person may eat of it, and those born in his household may eat of his food. If a priestess daughter marries a layman, she may not eat of the sacred contributions. But if a priestess daughter becomes a widow, or is divorced and has no children, and she returns to her father's house as in her youth, she may eat of her father's food, but no outsider shall eat of it. If anyone eats a sacred offering unintentionally, they must make restitution to the priest for the offering and add a fifth of its value to it. The priests must ensure that the sacred offerings presented by the Israelites to the Lord are treated with respect, by allowing them to eat the sacred offerings, and thereby bring upon them guilt requiring restitution. I am the Lord who makes them holy. The Lord addressed Moses, "Speak to Aaron, his sons, and all the Israelites, and say to them, if any of you, whether an Israelite or a foreigner residing in Israel, presents a gift as a burnt offering to the Lord, to fulfill a vow, or as a freewill offering, it must be a male without defect from the cattle, sheep, or goats, in order that it may be accepted on your behalf. Do not present anything with a defect, for it will not be accepted on your behalf. When anyone brings a fellowship offering to the Lord to fulfill a special vow, or as a freewill offering from the herd or flock, it must be without defect or blemish to be acceptable. Do not offer to the Lord anything that is blind, injured, or maimed, or with warts, festering or running sores. Do not place any of these on the altar as a food offering presented to the Lord. You may, however, present an ox or a sheep that is deformed or stunted as a freewill offering, but it will not be accepted in fulfillment of a vow. Do not offer to the Lord an animal whose testicles are bruised, crushed, torn, or cut. Do not do this in your land, and do not accept such animals from a foreigner to offer as the food of your God. They will not be accepted on your behalf, for they are deformed and have defects. The Lord addressed Moses, "When a calf, lamb, or goat is born, it is to remain with its mother for 7 days. From the 8th day on, it will be acceptable as a food offering presented to the Lord. Refrain from slaughtering a cow or a sheep along with its young on the same day. When you offer offering to the Lord, do so in a manner that ensures it will be accepted on your behalf. It must be eaten on the same day. Do not leave any of it till morning. I am the Lord. Keep my commandments and follow them. I am the Lord. Do not profane my holy name, for I must be acknowledged as holy by the Israelites. I am the Lord who makes you holy, and who delivered you from Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord." The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, these are the Lord's appointed times, which you shall proclaim as holy assemblies. My appointed festivals are these. For 6 days work may be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy assembly. You shall not do any work. It is a Sabbath to the Lord in all your dwellings. These are the Lord's appointed times, holy assemblies, which you shall proclaim at the times appointed for them. On the 14th day of the first month at twilight, the Lord's Passover is observed. On the 15th day of the same month is the festival of unleavened bread to the Lord. For 7 days you shall eat bread made without yeast. On the first day hold a holy assembly. You shall not do any regular work. For 7 days present an offering by fire to the Lord. On the 7th day hold a holy assembly. You shall not do any regular work." The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land, which I am going to give you, and you reap its harvest, bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain you harvest. He shall wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it may be accepted on your behalf. The priest is to wave it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day you wave the sheaf, you shall offer a male lamb a year old without defect as a burnt offering to the Lord, together with its grain offering of 2/10 of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with oil, an offering by fire to the Lord, a pleasing aroma, and its drink offering of 1/4 of a hin of wine. You shall not eat any bread, or roasted, or new grain, until the very day you bring this offering to your God. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count off 7 full weeks. Count 50 days until the day after the 7th Sabbath, and then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From your dwellings bring 2 loaves, made of 2/10 of an ephah of the finest flour, baked with yeast, as a wave offering of priesthood to the Lord. With this bread, present 7 male lambs, each a year old and without defect, 1 young bull and 2 rams. They shall be a burnt offering to the Lord, with their grain offerings and drink offerings, an offering by fire, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for a sin offering, and 2 lambs, each a year old, as a fellowship offering. The priest shall wave the 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread of the priesthood. They are a sacred offering to the Lord for the priest. On that same day you shall proclaim a holy assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner residing among you. I am the Lord your God. The Lord then spoke to Moses again, saying, Speak to the Israelites, saying, On the 1st day of the 7th month, you shall have a day of rest, a memorial proclaimed with trumpet blasts, a holy assembly. You shall not do any regular work, but you shall present an offering by fire to the Lord. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, On the 10th day of this 7th month is the day of atonement. Hold a holy assembly, and humble yourselves, and present an offering by fire to the Lord. You shall not do any work on that day, for it is the day of atonement, to make atonement for you before the Lord your God. Anyone who does not humble himself on that day must be cut off from his people. I will destroy from among his people anyone who does any work on that day. You shall refrain from all work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. It is a Sabbath of a complete rest for you, and you must humble yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening you shall observe your Sabbath. The Lord then spoke to Moses again, saying, Speak to the Israelites, saying, On the 15th day of this 7th month is the festival of tabernacles for 7 days to the Lord. On the 1st day is a holy assembly. You shall not do any regular work. For 7 days you shall present an offering by fire to the Lord, and on the 8th day hold a holy assembly, and present an offering by fire to the Lord. It is a closing special assembly. You shall not do any regular work. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you shall proclaim as holy assemblies for bringing offerings by fire to the Lord, burnt offerings and grain offerings, sacrifices and drink offerings, each day's requirement on its own day. Besides those of the Sabbaths of the Lord, and besides your gifts and all your vowed and voluntary offerings, which you give to the Lord. On the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the crops of the land, you shall celebrate the festival to the Lord for 7 days. The 1st day is a day of rest, and the 8th day also is a day of rest. On the 1st day, you shall take branches from luxuriant trees, from palms, willows and other leafy trees, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Celebrate it as a festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Celebrate it in the 7th month. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. All native-born Israelites shall live in such shelters, so that your descendants may know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when I brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses declared to the Israelites the appointed festivals of the Lord. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, Command the Israelites to bring you clear oil from pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may burn continually. Outside the curtain of the testimony in the tent of meeting, Aaron shall tend the lamps before the Lord from evening until morning continually. These shall be a lasting ordinance for all generations. The lamps on the pure gold lampstand before the Lord must be kept in order continually. Take fine flour and bake 12 loaves with it. using 2/10 of an ephah for each loaf. Arrange them in 2 rows, 6 in each row, on the table of pure gold before the Lord. Place pure incense on each row as a memorial portion to represent the bread, an offering by fire to the Lord. This bread is to be set out before the Lord regularly, every Sabbath, as an everlasting covenant for the Israelites. It shall belong to Aaron and his sons, who are to eat it in a holy place, for it is a most holy part of their perpetual share of the offerings, by fire to the Lord. Now the son of an Israelite woman and an Egyptian father went out among the Israelites, and a fight broke out in the camp between him and an Israelite man. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name and cursed, so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelomis, the daughter of Dibri, of the tribe of Dan. They held him in custody until they could discern the Lord's will regarding him. The Lord then spoke to Moses, saying, "Bring the blasphemer outside the camp. All those who heard him are to lay their hands on his head, and the entire assembly is to stone him. Say to the Israelites, anyone who curses their God will bear the responsibility for their sin. Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be put to death. The entire assembly shall stone them. Whether foreigner or native born, when they blaspheme the name, they shall be put to death. Anyone who takes a human life must be put to death. Anyone who takes the life of an animal must make restitution, life for life. If anyone injures their neighbor, the same shall be done to them. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as they have injured another, so shall it be inflicted on them. Whoever kills an animal must make restitution, but whoever kills a human being must be put to death. You shall have the same law for the foreigner and the native born. I am the Lord your God." Then Moses spoke to the Israelites, and they took the blasphemer outside the camp and stoned him. The Israelites did just as the Lord commanded Moses. The Lord communicated to Moses at Mount Sinai, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land must observe a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you may sow your fields and prune your vineyards and gather their produce. But in the 7th year, the land shall have a Sabbath rest, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your fields or prune your vineyards. You shall not reap what grows of itself or gather the grapes from your untrimmed vines. The land shall have a year of rest. Whatever the land yields during the Sabbath year will be food for you, for yourself, your male and female servants, and the hired worker and foreign resident living among you. Soji ta polvo lutis kabo deritsi, wo ixisi chopo mankraskasi. And also forsiasi tapo asenque tazo fosisil several livestock, and all the mal wild deripsi. Ita point all for your land. Quose land, popointuisis itu itisisi. War for the land, produces. Maybe it is. You shall count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. Then sound the trumpet throughout the land. On the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement, you shall sound the trumpet throughout your land. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. Each of you shall return to your property and to your family. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow, nor harvest what grows of itself, nor gather grapes from untrimmed vines. For it is a jubilee and shall be holy to you. You shall eat only what is taken directly from the fields. In this year of jubilee, each of you shall return to your property. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of one another. You are to purchase from your own people based on the number of years since the Jubilee, and they are to sell to you according to the number of years left for harvesting crops. In proportion to a greater number of years you shall increase the price, and in proportion to fewer years you shall decrease the price, because it is the number of crops that is being sold to you. Do not take advantage of one another, but fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. Follow my decrees and be careful to obey my laws, and you will live securely in the land. Then the land will yield its produce, and you will eat your fill and live securely on it. You may ask, what shall we eat in the 7th year, if we do not plant or harvest our crops? I will command my blessing for you in the 6th year, so that the land will yield enough for 3 years. While you are sowing during the 8th year, you will eat from the old produce, and continue to eat from it until the 9th year, when its produce comes in. The land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine, and you reside in my land as wanderers and guests. Throughout the land that you hold as a possession, you must ensure the redemption of the land. If one of your fellow Israelites becomes poor and sells some of their property, their nearest relative is to come and reclaim what they have sold. If there is no one to redeem it for them, yet later they prosper and acquire enough means to redeem it themselves, they are to calculate the value for the years since they sold it, and refund the balance to the one to whom they sold it. They can then return to their property. But if they do not acquire the means to repay, what was sold will remain with the buyer until the year of Jubilee. It will be returned in the Jubilee, and they can then return to their property. Anyone who sells a house in a walled city retains the right of redemption for a full year after its sale. During that time, the seller may redeem it. If it is not redeemed before a full year has passed, the house in the walled city shall belong permanently to the buyer and their descendants. It is not to be returned in the Jubilee. However, houses in villages without walls around them are to be regarded as part of the open country. They can be redeemed, and they are to be returned in the Jubilee. The Levites have the perpetual right to redeem their houses in the Levitical towns which they possess. So the property of the Levites is redeemable, that is, a house sold in any town they hold, and is to be returned in the Jubilee, because the houses in the towns of the Levites are their possession among the Israelites. Yet the pasture land belonging to their towns must remain unsold. It is their lasting possession. If any of your fellow Israelites become poor and are unable to support themselves among you, assist them as you would a foreigner and guest, so they can continue to live among you. Do not charge them interest or seek profit from them, but fear your God, so that they may continue to live among you. You must not lend them money with interest or sell them food for profit. I am the Lord your God, who delivered you out of Egypt to grant you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. If any of your fellow Israelites become poor and sell themselves to you, do not treat them as slaves. They are to be regarded as hired workers or temporary residents among you. They are to work for you until the year of Jubilee. Then they and their children are to be released, and they will return to their own clans, and to the property of their ancestors. For the Israelites are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt. They must not be sold as slaves. Do not rule over them with harshness, but fear your God. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may acquire slaves. You may also acquire some of the temporary residents living among you, and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property, and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites with harshness. If a foreigner residing among you becomes prosperous, and any of your fellow Israelites become poor, and sell themselves to the foreigner, or to a member of the foreigner's clan, they retain the right of redemption after they have sold themselves. A relative may redeem them. An uncle, a cousin, or any close relative in their clan may redeem them. Or, if they prosper, they may redeem themselves. They and their buyer are to calculate the time from the year they sold themselves up to the year of Jubilee. The price for their release is to be based on the rate paid to a hired worker for that number of years. If there are many years remaining, they must pay a larger portion of the price for their redemption. If only a few years are left until the year of Jubilee, they are to calculate that, and pay for their redemption accordingly. They are to be treated as workers hired from year to year. You must ensure that those to whom they owe service do not rule over them with harshness. Even if someone is not redeemed in these ways, they and their children are to be released in the year of Jubilee. For the Israelites are my servants. They are my servants, whom I brought out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Do not create idols, or set up a carved image, or a memorial stone for yourselves, nor place a figured stone in your land to bow down to it. For I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and hold my sanctuary in reverence. I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and are diligent to obey my commandments, then I will provide rain in its season, so that the land will yield its produce, and the trees of the field will bear their fruit. Your threshing will extend until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will last until sowing time. You will eat your fill and dwell securely in your land. I will grant peace in the land, so that you may lie down with no one to make you afraid. I will also remove harmful beasts from the land, and no sword will pass through your territory. You will pursue your enemies, and they will be defeated before you by the sword. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies will be overcome before you by the sword. I will turn towards you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will uphold my covenant with you. You will consume the old supply and make way for the new. I will set my dwelling among you, and my soul will not reject you. I will walk among you, I will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, so that you would no longer be slaves. I broke the bars of your yoke and enabled you to walk with heads held high. But if you do not listen to me and do not carry out all these commandments, and if you reject my statutes and loathe my ordinances, failing to carry out all my commandments and thus breaking my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting diseases, and fever that will destroy your sight and sap your strength. You will sow your seed in vain, for your enemies will eat it. I will set my face against you so that you will be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee when no one is pursuing you. If after all this you do not listen to me, I will punish you sevenfold for your sins. I will break down your stubborn pride and make the sky above you like iron and the earth beneath you like bronze. Your strength will be spent in vain, for your land will not yield its produce, nor will the trees of the land yield their fruit. If you remain hostile towards me and refuse to obey me, I will multiply your afflictions sevenfold according to your sins. I will send wild animals among you, which will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, and reduce your numbers, so that your roads become deserted. If despite these things you do not accept my correction and remain hostile towards me, then I will also be hostile towards you and will strike you sevenfold for your sins. I will bring a sword against you to execute the vengeance of the covenant. When you gather in your cities, I will send a plague among you, and you will be handed over to the enemy. When I cut off your supply of bread, 10 women will bake your bread in a single oven and dole it out by weight. You will eat, but not be satisfied. If in spite of this you do not listen to me and continue to be hostile towards me, then I will act with furious hostility against you, and I will punish you sevenfold for your sins. You will consume the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and pile your remains on the lifeless forms of your idols, for my soul will loathe you. I will lay waste to your cities and make your sanctuaries desolate, and I will not delight in the pleasing aroma of your offerings. I will make the land desolate so that your enemies who settle in it will be appalled. I will scatter you among the nations, and draw out a sword after you, as your land becomes desolate, and your cities become ruins. Then the land will enjoy its Sabbaths all the days of its desolation, while you are in your enemy's land. Then the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation it will have the rest it did not have on your Sabbaths when you lived on it. As for those of you who remain, I will bring fear into their hearts, in the lands of their enemies. The sound of a wind-blown leaf will chase them, and they will flee, as though fleeing from the sword, and they will fall, even though no one is pursuing them. They will stumble over each other, as if fleeing from the sword, even though no one is pursuing them, and you will have no strength to stand before your enemies. You will perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies will consume you. Those who remain will waste away in the lands of their enemies, because of their sins, also because of their ancestors' sins, they will waste away. But if they confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors, their unfaithfulness and their hostility towards me, which made me hostile towards them so that I sent them into the land of their enemies. Then, when their uncircumcised hearts are humbled, and they make amends for their wrongdoing, I will remember my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. For the land will be abandoned by them, and will enjoy its Sabbaths while it lies desolate without them. They will make amends for their sins, because they rejected my ordinances, and loathed my statutes. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them or loathe them, so as to destroy them completely, breaking my covenant with them, for I am the Lord, their God. For their sake, I will remember the covenant with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. These are the statutes, ordinances, and laws which the Lord established between himself and the Israelites through Moses on Mount Sinai. The Lord spoke to Moses again, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when someone makes a special vow to dedicate a person to the Lord, they shall be valued according to your assessment. If the assessment is for a male between the ages of 20 and 60, the value shall be 50 shekels of silver, by the sanctuary shekel. If it is for a female, then the value shall be 30 shekels. For a person between 5 and 20 years old, the value for a male shall be 20 shekels, and for a female, 10 shekels. For a person from 1 month to 5 years old, the value shall be 5 shekels of silver for a male, and 3 shekels of silver for a female. For a person 60 years old or more, if a male, the value shall be 15 shekels, and for a female, 10 shekels. If the one making the vow is too poor to pay the specified amount, they shall be presented to the priest, who will assess them according to what they can afford. If what is vowed is an animal that can be offered to the Lord, it shall be considered holy. They must not exchange or substitute it, good for bad or bad for good. If they do substitute one animal for another, both the original and the substitute shall become holy. If the vowed animal is ceremonially unclean and not acceptable as an offering to the Lord, it must be presented to the priest. The priest will assess its quality, whether good or bad. Whatever value the priest sets, that is what it shall be. If the owner wishes to redeem the animal, they must add a fifth to its value. If someone dedicates their house as holy to the Lord, the priest will assess its quality, whether good or bad. The value set by the priest shall stand. If the one who dedicates the house wishes to redeem it, they must add a fifth to its value, and it will become theirs again. If someone dedicates part of their family land to the Lord, its value shall be set according to the amount of seed required for it, 50 shekels of silver to a homer of barley seed. If they dedicate the field during the year of Jubilee, the value set shall remain. If they dedicate the field after the Jubilee, the priest will calculate the value according to the number of years remaining until the next Jubilee, and the value will be reduced. If the one who dedicates the field wishes to redeem it, they must add a fifth to its value, and it will become theirs again. If they do not redeem the field, or if it has been sold to someone else, it cannot be redeemed. When the field is released in the Jubilee, it shall be holy to the Lord, like a field devoted to him. It shall become the property of the priest. If someone dedicates to the Lord a field they have bought which is not part of their family land, the priest will assess its value up to the year of Jubilee, and the owner must pay the value on that day as something holy to the Lord. In the year of Jubilee, the field shall return to the person from whom it was bought, to whom the land originally belonged. Every value shall be set according to the sanctuary shekel, which consists of 20 gerahs. No one may dedicate the firstborn of an animal, since the firstborn already belongs to the Lord, whether ox or sheep, it is the Lord's. If it is one of the unclean animals, it may be redeemed at its set value plus a fifth. If not redeemed, it shall be sold at its set value. Nothing that a person owns and devotes to the Lord, whether human, animal, or family land, may be sold or redeemed. Everything so devoted is most holy to the Lord. No person who is devoted to destruction may be ransomed. They must be put to death. A tenth of all produce from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, is consecrated to the Lord. It is holy to him. If anyone wishes to redeem any of their tithe, they must add a fifth to its value. Every 10th animal of the herd and flock, whatever passes under the shepherd's rod, shall be holy to the Lord. No one may choose between good and bad or make any substitution. If a substitution is made, both the original and the substitute shall become holy and cannot be redeemed. These are the instructions the Lord provided to Moses for the Israelites on Mount Sinai.